Today you'll experience a life simulation, the life of a Silk Road merchant. In 730 AD, you were born in Chang'an, capital of the Great Tang Empire. Your father was a small cloth merchant in the West Market, and your family lived in an alley beside it. From your earliest memories, you heard strange languages drifting through the windows every day. Persians, Arabs, Turks, Sogdians, merchants from all over the world gathered in Chang'an's West Market. When you were 5, your father took you to see a Sogdian merchant's camel caravan at the West Market. It was your first time seeing camels, over 20 in a row, loaded with goods, arriving from deep in the desert. The Sogdian merchant had a thick beard and spoke fluent Chinese and patted your head with a laugh. "Kid, want to travel the Silk Road with me when you grow up?" You didn't know what the Silk Road was then, but you remembered the glittering goods on those camels' backs. At 12, your father sent you to apprentice under an old Sogdian merchant. The old man was named Lu Shan, not the one who later rebelled, but a veteran of 40 years of Silk Road trade. He taught you to distinguish real jade from fake, to judge silk quality, to calculate with an abacus, and to speak Sogdian and Persian. He said, "On the Silk Road, every language you learn is another life you have, because not understanding what others say is the most dangerous thing." At 18, you finally set foot on the Silk Road. You left Chang'an with a 50-person caravan, crossing the Hushi Corridor. It was your first time leaving Chang'an, your first time seeing the real desert. Yellow sand stretched from one horizon to the other, the sun hanging like a fireball. Days hot enough to fry an egg, nights so cold your bones trembled. You began to understand why your teacher said more people die on this road than survive. When the caravan reached Dunhuang, you were awestruck. The golden Buddhas of the Mogao caves, the murals so beautiful they left you speechless. What amazed you even more was that this was where Eastern and Western civilizations met. In the market you saw Byzantine gold coins, Persian carpets, Indian spices, and Tang silk and porcelain. You traded silk from Chang'an for Persian sapphires, tripling your profit. Past Dunhuang heading west, you entered true no-man's land. You traveled along the edge of the Taklamakan Desert for 15 days, water nearly gone. On the 12th day, a camel collapsed and never got up again. You distributed its cargo among other camels and pressed on. On the 14th day, the guide lost his way. Everyone thought they would die in the desert. You stayed awake all night, watching the North Star to confirm direction. On the 16th morning, you spotted a streak of green on the horizon, an oasis. You thought your eyes were playing tricks, rubbed them and looked again. The green was still there. You shouted water, and the entire caravan charged forward like mad. When you reached the oasis, everyone knelt to drink. Some choked from drinking too fast. You buried your face in the water, the sweetest you'd ever tasted in your life. After 3 months of trekking, you finally reached Samarkand, one of the most important cities on the Silk Road, called the Jewel of the East. Buildings adorned with blue tiles gleamed like gems in the sunlight. Here you drank wine for the first time, ate pomegranate for the first time, saw blonde-haired, blue-eyed people for the first time. You sold all your Chang'an silk for gold and gems, a 5-fold profit. On the return journey, you were ambushed by bandits on horseback. They were Turkic nomads, about 30 of them, charging from behind sand dunes on fast horses. The caravan had only 15 guards, no match at all. You hid behind a camel, hearing the clash of blades and screams. After the battle, you'd lost a third of your goods and 7 companions. You helped bury their bodies, piling 7 stone cairns as grave markers in the desert. A year later you returned to Chang'an, 20 pounds lighter and 3 shades darker, but with 8 times the money you'd left with. Your father wept when he saw you. He thought you died on the road. You handed your father the gems and gold. He counted for an entire day. Then he looked at you and said, "Son, you've earned more than I have in my entire life. From today, you're the head of this family." By 25, you were one of the biggest silk merchants in Chang'an's West Market. You had your own camel train, 120 camels split into 3 caravans running 3 routes simultaneously. One took the northern route to Samarkand, one south to India, one by sea via Guangzhou to the Persian Gulf. You employed over 200 people, guards, guides, interpreters, and camel drivers. You opened 3 shops in the West Market, selling exotic treasures from the western regions. At 26, a matchmaker introduced you to a suitable young woman, the daughter of another major merchant in Chang'an. Her name was Lu Ruyan, not the most beautiful, but faster than you at accounting. Your wedding was held at the West Market's largest restaurant, with over 300 guests, both Chinese and foreign. Your teacher in Lushan got drunk, slapped your shoulder, and said, "You're the best student I ever taught." You felt this was the peak of your life. In 755, the Lushan rebellion erupted. Rebel forces swept from Fanyang toward Chang'an. The entire Tang Empire was turned upside down. Your caravan was trapped in the Hushi corridor. In Chang'an, panic reigned. Even the emperor fled. You, Ruyan, and your 2 children grabbed what gold and valuables you could carry, joining the refugee exodus south. You looked back one last time at Chang'an, the city you'd lived in for 25 years, fires illuminating half the sky. You fled with your family to Chengdu. Everything you'd built in Chang'an, 3 shops, warehoused goods, your mansion, all gone. But you still had gold in your pockets and every skill the Silk Road had taught you in your head. You started over in Chengdu, buying Sichuan brocade and hiring a small caravan to trade on the southern Tea-Horse Road. You told Ruyan, as long as the road remains, the money can be earned back. After the rebellion was quelled, you returned to a devastated Chang'an. The West Market still stood, but was nothing like its former glory. Many foreign merchants had left and never returned. You reopened your shop with money earned in Chengdu, but the Silk Road was no longer as safe. Cities along the route had been destroyed by war, bandits had tripled. You had to spend far more on guards, having your profits. But you kept running this route. At 50, you made a bold decision. The overland Silk Road was growing too dangerous. You shifted focus to the sea. You bought 2 large ships in Guangzhou, loaded with silk, porcelain, and tea, sailing south along the coast through Kampa and Srivijaya all the way to Baghdad. Maritime profits were higher than overland, but so were the risks. Your first sea voyage hit a typhoon. You nearly lost the ship and your life. You stayed in Baghdad for half a year. It was one of the world's largest cities then, as prosperous as Chang'an. Arabs went wild for the silk and porcelain you brought. A bolt of fine Sichuan brocade fetched its weight in gold. In Baghdad's bazaar you met an Arab scholar, who told you, "You Chinese invented paper and gunpowder. These 2 things will change the entire world." You didn't pay much attention, you only cared how much they could sell for. You passed all your Silk Road experience to your 2 sons. The elder took the land route, the younger the sea route. You taught them weather reading, navigation, trading with people of different languages, and finding water in the desert. You also told them what your Sogdian teacher taught you. Every language you know is another life. Your sons were smarter than you and built an even bigger business. At 65, you could no longer walk the road. You sat at the entrance of your West Market shop, watching caravans come and go. Camel bells rang from one end of the street to the other, just as when you first departed at 18. Ruyan brought you a bowl of hot tea, and you took a sip. She said, "You've walked tens of thousands of miles in your life. Now you've finally agreed to sit down." You smiled and said, "The road is still there. It's just my legs that can't keep up."